racing community. So we came up with this idea to honor the greatest sprint car driver of all time, Steve Kinser, and we're so glad you came to be a part of that. Before we get started, just to let you know your way around the building, there's restrooms right across the hallway. If you need a handicap or a family bathroom, those are on around the corner. After the service, we will be collecting a free will donation again, and that money will all be given away to charity. Part of it will go to the Grand Theater Project here in Knoxville. It closed down a few years ago, and the community is kind of rallying around and raising funds, and we're going to renovate that back to its original state, and we're going to have concerts and movies and other things like that. So part of the money will be going to the Grand Theater Project. The rest of the money will be going to the KRCO, and that is the Knoxville Racing Charitable Organization. And what they do, it's a group of volunteers that raise money, and they help local drivers buy safety equipment, new fire suits. If somebody gets injured, they help out with paying some of their insurance premiums. So it's a really neat organization we have here at Knoxville, and we want to try to bless them with some of that money as well. So all your donations will be giving to those two organizations, so please give greatly, if you would. After the program, there's a table out front, and there's also some at the information center. There's some cards that look like this, and all this is a comment card. You know, this is the first time we've done something like this. We want to know what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, and then on the back there's a spot of what you might like to see next year, because we want to continue to be a part of this racing thing and bless the community. So after the tribute, our youth group in the kitchen, which is across the cafe area, will be selling root beer floats. So on your way out, enjoy a root beer float and help out our youth group if you would. And I know nobody came to see me talk. So with all that said, I'd like to introduce the host of today's Steve Kinser tribute from MRN Radio. He's the co-host of Wing Nation. I don't know if you're the co-host with Kinser or she's your co-host, but anyway, Steve Post of MRN Radio.
Hey, guys. Wow. Good to see everyone. Am I on medium? Is this working? We up? All right. Okay. There we go. Okay. Having a little trouble hearing too many race cars over the years. You know, it is great to be here with you folks today. We are just excited about it. I am host of Wing Nation. We do coverage, and I am a small part of Kendra Jacobs' world. So that's really where I fit in with that. But we're so excited about this because it's not often in the great sport of auto racing we get a chance to watch a superhero. You know, I mean, and you know, Motor Racing Network, we do a lot of things with NASCAR. We see some guys that have pretty incredible careers. But when we look at the sprint car world, we get a chance to watch and to pay tribute to a man that is sprint car racing. Was talking to some folks with National Speed Sport News, and I got thinking about it. I grew up governing dirt modifieds in the Northeast. And when I think of World of Outlaw sprint cars back then, I thought of Steve Kinser. And when I think of sprint cars today and World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, Knoxville Nationals, you think of Steve Kinser. And this year has been a tribute year, and we're going to spend a little time today. We've got some Hall of Famers that are going to swing by and are here already to share a little bit and tell some stories. And we do have microphones down front, and there will be times during the program where we would invite you up to if you have a story, a comment, or a question for Steve, we certainly would welcome those. So be thinking about that as you go. And without standing up here and talking anymore, because as Judge said, really not here to hear us talk. Let's bring him out. He is the king of the outlaws, the 20-time champion. Let's bring out driver of the Bad Boy Buggies car, Steve Kinser. Well, the tribute. Are you surviving the tribute?
I'm surviving it. It's been a little bit different, but it's something we're used to. You know, we always spend a lot of time, anyways, with the fans, and the media's grab a big part of it. And we've got, you know, about 3 keys to the city, and just all different kinds of things. It's been a lot of things going on, and you know, sort of makes you wonder why you sort of open your mouth, and after a night last night, you know why you did. So.
Right. We'll let you guys work on the car and have better things to talk about on track tomorrow here for the running of the race. As you were young, as you were starting into this sport, of course, your family was involved in it. And even the last umpteen years, did you ever envision a tribute to you? Because you've just been assuming, you're just out there racing your car trying to win the next race. Did you ever think it would get to this stage where we have a year-long celebration honoring you?
Well, I actually, I didn't even know if I'd ever get a race
Yeah.
to start with. I ran around with helmet bags and everything else, and grew up around racing. Always wanted to race, but thought I'd be happy just racing on the weekends and having a job and being able to get off maybe on the weekends to race, and then it turned into a career, and so I was just happy that racing's treated me well.
What was your first race? What do you remember about it? Tell us about it.
I'd went out and in some of my dad's cars and wheel packed it and never really hot lapped it. And I can't remember the first time I actually hot lapped a car. I think Jim Walsh, a guy who used to run around our area, had a car he was going to sell, and he had a guy down there to buy it, and I got out and hot lapped it and got it in the front stretch wall, just glazed it a little bit with the right rear. Didn't hurt anything, but that was the first time I think I actually got on the throttle and actually race. And after that, the first race I ran was for Bob Thompson, just sort of a one-shot deal. And I don't know what was going on. They was having a little thing. They just asked me to drive it for one night, so I drove that car one night. And then actually the next year I drove for him. We went ahead and put a little team together. No, actually, after that, Jerry Shields, the guy my dad was driving for, put a car together, had a second car, and we ran it for 5 or 6 races. I think that must have been at the end of 75 or 6, somewhere in there. And then we started to run Bob Thompson, and then the World of Outlaws started. We pretty well got hooked up with Carl, and that was it. We ran for him for 14 years.
Amazing, amazing stuff. It really is. As you were a kid, as you were wheel packing, and I know you talked about you hope to get a job where you had a job but raced on the weekends. Did you ever envision? And it was a different era. We didn't talk about full-time race car drivers back then. Did you ever envision that would be a career ultimately?
No, I didn't ever envision it probably being a career, but I did realize that my dad was making a little extra money on the weekends, so I knew that it would be something that could help out as long as you didn't own one of the cars. Anyways.
A lesson for today and a lesson for how many years ago. There's some things never change, right?
Oh, I don't know. I've enjoyed owning some of our race teams, and I've enjoyed not, so it works both ways.
At what point, was there a point in your career where you said, it struck you, where, hey, this is going pretty good? Is there a race? Is there a memory? Is there just a point in one of those early seasons where the World of Outlaws started where you're like, this is going pretty good. This might be quite a ride.
Yeah, we ran for a couple years and ran really well locally, and then I don't know, just sort of the World of Outlaws just sort of fell. The timing for me just kept working out. It worked out really well for me. They started paying a little more money, and I got to get in one of the fastest race cars there was in the United States at that time, sprint cars. So the timing was good on that, and it just everything sort of grew. We had a lot of good races back there. Me and Sammy and Doug, we put on some great races, and it was those rivalries, and just everything was just right to make everything work right, and it's just continued to, and that's all I wanted to ever see. I'd love to be able to see sprint car people, mechanics, guys that work on them, be able to get some of the pay what they're worth for all the hours, because most of these guys that work on these things do it for just the love of it, and then. It'd be nice to be able to see some of them be able to, raise a family and stuff. But we've did pretty good. We've had some great young kids that's worked for Steve Kinser Racing, and then over the years, and we've been able to pass them on to Penske and Eddie Green and a few other race teams where they did real well.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing how that evolution goes. We've spent a lot of time earlier this year with the race at Devil's Bowl, talking about the beginning of the World of Outlaws. The first race that Ted Johnson put together, and we commemorated that earlier this year. So I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but what the decision to go do that what was the decision to go do that made you tow down there to do his first race?
Well, actually, I had been running an '86 car out of Sedalia, Missouri, or Columbia, Missouri, for some guys. I'd ran for them a couple of races at the end of the year before that, and so we went down and ran Florida and Phoenix City, Alabama, and ran that car. So I ran the '86 car. I think the first time when we come back from Phoenix City, Alabama, we won that race there, and then the next race was the Devilsville. So I jumped in the car with Elrod, which ran around with Carl and helped him drive and things, and trying to butter him up a little bit for get to because I knew the ride was open, and so the first race we ran was 80, and we didn't go down there to run a World of Outlaw race. Just so happens we come into pits and Ted Johnson said, "Hey, I need $40. We're going to start a point standing and do this and that or whatever." And any race that pays over so much counts toward points. It was wasn't a one race point thing. It was sort of a. You'd have to know Ted a little bit better, probably. If I get right into it, but it's a little fly by night. But so I hand him the money or whatever. But I think we fell out one of the first cars to fall out of the race that night, and then I think the next race was Eldor. And so between then and stuff, Carl would offer me the ride, and we took off from there. And a lot of trips from Eldor back to Devil's Bowl and back to Ohio and Texas. I can tell you that.
Boy, that's for sure. I can't imagine the miles up and down the road. It's funny, and when you think of the World of Outlaws and the way it all started, and you just showed up, paid the guy $40, and it was Ted Johnson. He was a very typical promoter in those days and everything else. When did you realize that he might be onto something here, and this might be something we need to, other than just dropping in along the way, we might need to pay attention to?
Well, we realized it pretty quick because everything's for some reason, like I said, we just had that rivalry, and then the grandstand started filling up, and the promoters started getting interested, and anytime the promoters make money, everybody's happy.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Absolutely. Really, really cool. You mentioned Ted Johnson with the World of Outlaws, founder of it, and talked a little bit about it. And Ted no longer with us, obviously. Over the course of years, you talked about him early on there with the $40 and that sort of thing. What are some of the things that stand out to you, memories of Ted, a funny story, something that happened along the way that was quintessential, that was what Ted Johnson was?
Well, Ted Johnson was a race fan, which most people that get involved are race fans first, whether it be promoters or whatever. But, Ted would tell you what you want to hear all the time. It was just, and he would like to try to back it up, but like Ted could tell you a lot of stuff he couldn't back up. But so there was a lot of confusion a little bit, but he did a good job. He really respected racers a lot, and he really tried to do the guys that support him and come to the race. He tried to help every one of them. He didn't lean toward me and Sammy and Doug, and he actually tried to help other guys that was following us a lot and everything. And so he did a good job on that. And then, like I said, he got onto something and it took off, and he did a good job with it, actually.
Your first marquee win. What do you consider your first big race win?
Oh, I would have to think probably it'd probably be like I can't remember if it was $5,000 or $10,000 race or something at Eldor. Earl was. Back then that was a pretty good payday, and one of them was we happened to. I could barely remember, but we actually won a race there, and I can't remember if it paid $5,000 or $10,000. And decided we was going to go to Kokomo and try to win another one, and it was a non-win race, and I didn't even make it through qualifying. So we went. Actually, there was three of us that went there, and I think Gary Grissom, he went over the fence, and then I went out. We got there late, so we had to warm our cars up at the infield, and they sent us out the last three cars, and he crashed, and I went over the fence and tore the roll cage up. It was a non-wing card, and hit me in the head, and they'd take me to hospital. Took two out of hospitals, and Lee Osborne was the next one to go out to qualify, and he said, "Hang on here just a second." That's what I said.
Wow.
And I don't know if all these stories are true or not, but they said I got out of the car, and I was looking at the car, and he said, "Oh, that Dick Gaines had a heck of a wreck." Which Dick was the guy who was driving the car before that, with my car.
Oh my gosh! Didn't even realize you were a bigger part of it than you thought. We've got some great guests here. I want to bring some of them up, but I just walked through the Hall of Fame across the street, and folks, if you haven't been there, you need to go over there. The Steve Kinser tribute, and you just told the story about non-wing cars. what was it like then? We still live, there's non-wing racing around now, but the wing sprint car has kind of taken over. It's certainly taken over here in Knoxville and everything like that. What was the adaptation process when you were racing from one to the other? What was that like?
Well, I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, because I started with all non-wing stuff,
Yeah.
and that's what we ran. That was sort of what was in our area. And I liked running, I liked running with the wings also. But, I was always sort of partial to non-wing race. So and I ran really good with them and things. And then so I just enjoyed racing them. But, they, as many races we run a year and everything that's going on, it's probably better off to have them on top of the wings on top of there all the time because, you can run 80, 90 races a year and there's a lot of things can happen.
Boy, tell me about it, that's for sure. You're absolutely right. We've got some of your friends here, some Hall of Famers here, going to share some stories. And throughout also, I'm going to drop some other names on you and kind of get your reaction to them. When I mention the name Andy Hillenberg, what comes to mind?
Well, Andy's been a good friend. I mean, from the word go, I met Andy, I think I actually met Andy more through Sammy probably. Andy had started racing and him and Sammy was kicking around a little bit. So then as soon as he started running with us, he became a good friend, him and his family, and then been good friends ever since.
Well, the good news is the good friend is back here at Knoxville.
Yeah, I've already talked to him. I already see him here.
Let's bring him on up. Let's bring Andy up. Andy Hillenberg, everyone. There we go. Andy, got myself tied up there. Jump in here, and we'll just chat a little bit about it. I gave Steve the first shot, and he didn't take any shots at you or anything like that. He was pretty kind to you. Steve Kinser, what comes to mind when you think of the King?
Well, I didn't write anything down, so I had 7 hours to think about what I was going to say, and it'll probably it will be a lot of hits and miss. But I met Steve 10 years before he met me. I got his autograph. In 1978, we had a big speedway in Tulsa, and I got his autograph that night. He wasn't very friendly because it flipped, and I can't remember. I think you got your leg burned that night,
Yeah.
And that was Carl's car. Anyway, so he flipped all the way down through there and ended up on top of the wall. But I did get his autograph. So, and that was in '78. In 1979, I got his autograph here at the Knoxville Nationals. I was about 12 years old, and then he wouldn't meet me till 10 years later, and I actually couldn't get to meet him. I had to meet Dana first. I'd get a nod from him, or something like that whenever I started racing, but. I actually met Dana at the McDonald's in West Memphis, Arkansas. This motorhome rolls in, and I knew it was his. She's driving. She gets out. She comes into the McDonald's. She's got Kurt, which he was about he was a little bitty guy. She was holding Craig in this arm. Stevie was tucked in her back pocket. And I get to meet her and talk to her in the McDonald's line, and then she leaves. She gets out, and she drives the motorhome out. And I never see this guy. And so I'm thinking, all right, now he's just won 10 races in a row. His wife gets him McDonald's. He's laying back there asleep, and she's driving the motorhome. How's this work? So anyway, I don't know, and it went on from there. I guess I met him, got to talking to him a little bit, and then I was running gambler cars, switched around and started running TMC cars, and I was following Sammy for a while. But I think about all those things. It's been really fun, and we've had a really good time over the years.
Steve, what's the best race you remember racing side by side with this guy? Maybe you won. Maybe he got the best of you. What is there a race that stands out with you and Andy?
No, we've had a lot of good races. It wasn't just one. We raced a lot together, so there was many of them. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, Andy was everybody's good friends off the track. When you get on, you know, we're all competitors then. But you know, Andy, he was always really good on, you know, a lot of the short tracks and things like that. Every track actually ran really good. He was sort of on his own. We was all running. We was most of the time Andy would run McClary tires, where we all was on Goodyears and stuff. So he was. I don't know if. Sometimes a little disadvantage or a little advantage. It worked both ways at different places. So I know one thing, when he decided he was going to quit racing, we sure missed him a lot. And but it's just the way it goes, I guess. I figured
What was
it
that
out
laugh?
myself.
Like it.
What was that laugh?
I don't know
about?
what kind of
There's
answer he's got about that,
There's a
'cause I know-
story here, I think.
I know he has to miss racing.
You know, a while ago I heard you mention special races, and obviously everybody knows that he's the best sprint car driver there ever will be. And I'm pretty sure you're going to remember this. In '89, we were out there, and the number might not be correct, but it's going to be so large that it's not going to matter. I think he and Carl won 27 nights in a row. And somebody would have to look that up. You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But I talked to my dad, and I was like, really? I mean, we're out here running for second. So in 1990, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to try something else. And you know, and I kind of did for a minute. So I mean, he kind of ran me off for a year, you know. But I thought that was funny. And then I've really got a lot of stories. I don't know how long I'm allowed to stay up here, but
Keep going.
I want to tell you guys I want to tell you two stories. And I could tell some other ones, but they probably wouldn't be appropriate for the establishment that we're in.
I was going to tell you not to worry about that.
So Steve and I become friends, and we really didn't. I don't know. We still don't. Even when I talk to him, we don't talk much about racing. Now we talk about old cars all the time. But whenever we were together, we'd always go out and eat, and he'd never bring his wallet. And you know, we'd get ready to leave, and he'd, Dana, did you bring any money? But anyways, he blew his motorhome up one time, and he calls me, hey, where are you at? I tell him where we were, and I'm not sure. I think we were headed for Billings, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, well, he said, I'm about 150 miles ahead of you, and he said, I blew a motorhome up. He said, I'm at a rest area. Why don't you stop by here? All right. So we roll in, and wow, he was red and mad. So I was like, all right, DM, what are we going to do here? So we roll out the cooker and get out a spread, and we start cooking and carrying on. And I said, well, when are we going to Billings? Well, I got to wait for the tow truck to drag this wreck in, you know. And so he eased up. We ate some shrimp, cooked some steaks and stuff. And he says, well, I guess we got the motorhome on the low boy. And he said, well, I guess we'll take off. I thought we were staying there tonight, you know. So motorhome takes off. He says, well, let's go. And I said, well, we're just going to stay here, aren't we? Nope, I ain't staying here. We're going to the next place. So here we drive all night. Me and Deanne are laying back in the bed asleep, and Steve Kinser's driving my motorhome like. I wish they would have had GoPros back then, because boy. So.
That's cool.
And then I'll tell you a funny one now. It wasn't real funny then. And I know Steve's going to remember this one. And these are the stories that I like, because I don't know, we raced all the time, so I like these kind of more real life ones. But go to Calistoga, shorten the whole story up. I go into one, get up on the berm. For those of you who have seen that racetrack, I'm miss the bottom, slide across, and take him out. And we were pretty good buddies at that time. So I don't really remember how come he didn't get out of the car real early, but I did. And one of his crew members coming over there running their mouth, and that didn't work out so well for him. And so after the tussle, we head back, and they pushed me in. I got a flat right rear, right? Well, Steve's is coming in on the hook. And here he comes. Shoulders this wide. Face as red as a flag. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that crew member, he was easy. I don't know what, I hope this ain't fixing to happen. And it didn't. He did chew me out a little bit. So after the races in Calistoga, there's some extracurricular activities that go on over at the barn, and Deanna and I left, and we're walking back, and he's sitting with the guy from Australia that passed away. What was his name?
Who's that?
The guy from Australia.
Oh, Healy?
Yeah, Brian Ely and Tony, and then a guy and his wife from Sacramento. And here he is sitting about 3 motorhomes down. Hey, come here. I'm like, oh boy. So we shook hands, and everything was good. So I thought that would be a pretty funny story to tell.
That's cool. That is absolutely cool. You mentioned something, Andy, and it took me back. We did an interview on our Wing Nation show back we started 4 or 5 years ago with Jeff Gordon, okay? And Jeff Gordon's done pretty well in the racing world. And it's funny to hear you tell a story because Jeff remembered he was a little 14-year-old snot-nosed kid racing somewhere, maybe down in Tampa, maybe down in East Bay. And he said he got the nod from Steve Kinser. Just that was all. And it was like, whether it was Andy Hillenberg or Jeff Gordon, to get the nod, kind of the first acknowledgement. It sounds like that's a pretty good starting spot for a young sprint car driver to get the acknowledgement.
You know what? He was always that way, and I didn't think he was that nice until you get to know him, or until you gotta. You just gotta be aggressive and make him talk to you. So, oh boy, there's been some fun times, I'll tell you what. Man, oh man.
That's cool.
And you know what? To be honest with everybody here, I've been out of racing for 13 years now, and I don't know if Steve's going to I know he's not going to totally quit, but I'm really looking forward to spending some time with him and Dana.
Great story in Speed Sport News. A story on Dana talking about it, and the example she used is maybe we can go down to Oklahoma and go fishing, hang out with Andy Hillenberg. So it's really neat. Before we cut you loose here, so it's been 12 years since you've been here in Knoxville. What have you been doing? What's been going on with you?
It's been 13 years, and I've only been to 5 races, and I went with him went to see him to 3 of those, and we just been working, raising kids, and got a place at the lake, and things have changed, and so
Making money.
Making money,
So
It's hard to get away from the family-owned business sometimes, I'd say.
You know, I don't know if Dana's in here, but you're talking about her. I'm going to be able to get her here next time they show up at the shop, because I've got in my showroom. I got the 3 kings. I've got Richard Petty, I got Elvis, and I got Steve Kinser. And I've got a stand-up of him in the. Dana's not in here, is she? Okay, because this will turn out good. It's kind of been haunting Dana for years. I got a stand-up of him in the Valvoline car, and she heard I had it, and so she asked me, and I said, "Yeah, I got one." Well, first question, well, how'd you get it? I've never told her. And I'm not going to tell all you all either, but I will tell her one day. And it's a pretty good story because it come out of the attic of their house, and she has no idea how, or the shop, and she has no idea how I got it.
I think we got a little hint there, though. I really do. Andy, a real thrill to have you here. I know it's funny, we had Shane Stewart on the show last night. He talked about how great it was to see you back here at Knoxville. Are you enjoying your visit back here?
Man, we've had a great time. We'll probably be back. I mean, it's been really fun, and I just like to see all the. Well, there's a few people I didn't want to see, but for the most part, I enjoy really seeing everybody, and I've had a great time, and so Steve and I got to talk a little bit the other night, and that was fun. He said he was coming over, and it was pouring down rain. I said, "Yeah, you won't be here." "Yeah, I'm coming over." Here he came in that bad boy buggy, pouring down rain. We got to talk a little bit, so that was fun. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to the next years, and he and I's already talked about some of that, and maybe we'll get to spend a little more time together. It'll be really fun.
That's good. Andy, thanks for joining us here. How about for Andy Hillenberg?
I want to say thanks to the church too, and thanks for everybody for showing up, and you guys having this for him. It's really nice.
Cool. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Wow. Good stuff. That's for sure. From Andy Hillenberg, and a lot of great stories, a lot of great racing. Steve, going to mention some names or some. Let's talk a little about racetracks. Let's talk a little racetracks here. We'll talk to some other people here along the way, but racetracks. When I mentioned the name of Devil's Bowl, that's where it all started. What's a memory? What's your thoughts when I mentioned Devil's Bowl?
Oh, I mean, Lanning, Beverly, Edwards
Yes.
comes up first for me. But as far as the racetrack, it could either be good or real bad. That place, you come in there and it'd be so sticky. And we had back when we first come, our cars were all high-centered, lightweight, and I mean, this thing would stick to the right rear so hard. And I could go down there and just struggle to get this thing to turn and keep the front end out of the ground and stuff. So I had a lot of hard times getting around that racetrack, and just my race car and the way I drive didn't fit it well. But we did win a lot of races there, I will say that, and come back when it eventually would slicken off a little bit, and we could start getting around it. But it was a fun racetrack. It was actually the first time I seen Devil's Bowl. The first time I seen Devil's Bowl, my dad had went down to I think Shreveport, Louisiana, to race a race, and I'm not sure. I think Ted Johnson might have been promoting that race. To be honest with you, I hadn't started racing yet. And we left there and went down and I can't remember. Maybe I had started racing there. Anyways, we went down there and I seen Devil's Bowl, and I looked. You see Devil's Bowl. The front stretches here, and the back stretches way up here, and it was quite a different racetrack.
Cool stuff. Track that we talk about some of the storied tracks. Track that didn't have much history in the sport of sprint car racing, but the one or two race, man, it was big. Bristol, when they put dirt on that, what was that like?
Bristol was, it was, it's a little bit different than Eldor and stuff, but it was a lot of fun. It was something you could definitely tell you was running in the banks. I can't imagine putting that much dirt on it and cleaning all the mess up, but we did it for 2 years, and it was a lot of fun, and enjoyed racing there.
Williams Grove.
Williams Grove's a racetrack of its own, you know what I mean? It's we were in there over the years, and it doesn't matter what period I've went through about 3 periods of drivers I raced against at Williams Grove. When we first showed up, you get Stevie Smith, Smokey Stellbaker, Glenn Paxton. There's a lot of different guys that run really good there, and of course you always had Weichert always had a great race car, the 29, so whoever was in that car at the time was going to run pretty good. And Al Hamilton had great race cars that went around that track all the time real well. So, and then they just keep changing. They just it's a place where the motor builders will stay on top of, because you got to have a good motor to run there and everything else. So the competition's always been really tough there. It's it's just real long straightaways, real tight corners, and it's a little bit different than most tracks you do around.
Fred Raymer, there's a great story in Speed Sport News, and of course Fred, Hall of Famer, just retired last year, and there's a tribute piece, and he shared a story of a national open one time, and I don't know how much of this you remember. He remembers it vividly because he's still not happy about it. Apparently red flag midway through the race, and you had too many guys working on your car.
Well, there was no too many guys working on the car. There was one good friend, and also was a photographer. You know what I mean?
Okay.
From Bloomington, and his dad was a photographer, and they ran they sent articles in the Speed Sport, worked for
Right.
Speed Sport stuff back at the time and stuff. So, I mean, he just happened to wander out there and was snapping pictures and stuff. So it wasn't nobody's blame. I mean, he felt terrible about what happened, and then there was no, it's not my job to police who comes
Sure.
out on a racetrack for sure. But he was from Indiana, so what do you do? But it made it. They sent us a tail, and we come back and won it anyway. So the heck with it.
Sent him to last. Fred described it as a track nobody could pass on, and he blew by everybody and won the race. He said you probably were not happy running from the back of the field after that. Probably you had a little bit of energy in you, were you?
I probably did have it. We had the race car to do it too.
That's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. We'll talk some more tracks, but we got another Hall of Famer here that we want to bring out, and he is just one of the most, one of the, arguably the best spokesperson for the sport, and maybe the greatest ambassador the sprint car racing has. Let's bring out Brad Doty joining us here. Right over here.
Brought your own seat.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brad, Steve Kinser.
I tell you, Andy brought a lot of memories back. Just sitting back there thinking, what do I remember most about this guy? And mostly getting beat by him. You know, the times I ran second. Andy brought up the 27 wins. I think it was 26 out of the last 27 races of 1987. And the reason I remember that is because in 87, I finished second in the points to him. And I won a measly 4 races that year, and he won, 56? So, I remember passing him in hot laps at East Bay Raceway. I think it was the first time I ever raced against him. And, I passed Steve Kinser in hot laps. I have a picture of it that I hang up in my trophy room to prove it. This was just hot laps. But, he is the best that's ever sat in a sprint car, and his records will stand forever. Pretty phenomenal. And I'm glad to just, be part of his history a little bit and got to race with you. It was an honor, and you're going to be missed. I know that you're not retiring entirely, and glad to hear that you're still going to be at some of the races. You brought up Calistoga, Andy. That racetrack there the other night at the media luncheon, I believe it was Terry McCarroll brought up how you got the front axle knocked out the first lap and came back to win. I remember that one too, because I was the one that was leading it till the final corner, and he passed me for the win. Williams Grove Speedway. It's a 30 lapper. I led 29 3/4 laps. He put a slide job on me in 3 and 4, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw him coming. I got out of the throttle, let him go by, and this is my story, so I'm telling my way. He went by me so fast and so hard that he banged off the wall. And if I remember right, the motor stalled. Well, I turned it to try to get back under him and got in the slick part of the racetrack and spun out. He bounced off the wall, and if I remember right, the motor, you all but killed the motor, and Wolfgang drilled you in the back and kept him going, and the caution's out for me sitting in the middle of the racetrack. They restart the race, he's leading it, and he wins the race. And I saw the video, and even Doug Wolfgang told me, he said, I can't believe that he made that work. I'd have never even attempted it. I swear he was still at the bridge when I was entering turn 3 at Williams Grove, and somehow he got by me. So that was another one I lost to him.
There's a theme here. I don't know.
The king wins a lot of races.
Steve, a little bit about racing with Brad. Is there a race? Is there a memory, or is there just something about Brad that stands out to you?
Oh, we had a lot of good races. I'm not real good at remembering all of them, but me and Brad we traveled up and down the road a lot together at times, and we was a little bit different guys going up and down the road. Brad always wanted to take in everything that was going on, and I'd blast right by everything. And right to the next track, Brad said, "Oh, how do you do this? You don't even stop and see, don't do nothing. You just keep on going." Because, he wants to sightsee and do all of his history, and I was probably the same way in school. I just race cars, whatever. But
I was Rookie of the Year in '82, so it was the 5th year of the Outlaw. So he'd been doing it for a while, but he brought that up. They used to have an old, I believe it was the white Ford truck that had the big diesel, or I know Carl had the Chevy with the diesel, but didn't you have a white Ford truck early on with the open
yeah, we
trailer?
did have.
4-door, right?
Yep.
And I mean, back then, a big rig, when I was with the Bowers Coal, we had a pretty nice dually with an enclosed trailer, and that was top of the line rig in those days. There's about 4 or 5 of us in a dually pickup riding 50, 60,000 miles a year. It was pretty tight. But at least we had air conditioning. Steve, the old Ford, if I remember, that didn't have air. But I remember going down the road, and Elrod, guy that used to help Carl and Steve, always drove the rig, but Steve's in the back seat sleeping with his feet hanging out the back window as they go by down the interstate. And I mean, like Steve said, my eyes are wide open. I want to see everything. I'm looking out the windows. I don't want to miss a thing. And he's back there sleeping. And that's what he's talking about. I asked him, I said, how can you do that? Don't you want to see? I mean, don't you want to see what's out there? And he just kind of, just kind of mumbled, "Well, I've already seen it all, And he'd been on the road 4 or 5 years, and he felt like he'd seen it all. It was my first year. I wanted to see it all.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Brad, you talk about a couple of those kind of the marquee races, or what was your best win? Something where Steve was involved, where we talked about the second place runs, but is there something you won that you took off them, or was something like that, or you didn't quite get there for that?
I didn't win enough, Drew, I guess. I don't know what this says about my frame of mind or my personality, but what comes to mind is another one I lost.
Right. Yeah.
The Gold Cup. I see he's a 11-time Gold Cup champion or something, and every time I read those stats, I go, "Oh, there's one of them he shouldn't have had." It was a Chico, and at the last, it was always 40 laps, and at the last minute, at the drivers' meeting, they said they're going to make it 50 laps. And we all mumbled and grumbled, why? Why is it, it's supposed to be 40, why 50? I was leading it on the 48th lap, driving Gary Stanton's car, and broke a torque tube. And he and Sammy, again, my story, they were in front of me, running second and third. I had a big lead, and Stanton, the car owners, coming out on the racetrack, giving me a big signal to slow down. I felt like if I slowed down anymore, I was going to stall it in the corners. I mean, the thing was just working, and we broke a torque tube, and he rolls into victory lane, and got the Gold Cup win. And that's another one that got away. So again, I don't know what that says about me, but the few that I won, I didn't care where he finished. He was somewhere behind me.
That's all that matters.
You should have backed off. That torque tube might have fell out there. Everybody made it there.
I heard that from I heard that from so many people that the dumb driver, he was out front, on the gas, broke the car, and I felt maybe I was chattering the rear end. I was going so slow, and that's what broke it.
That's it exactly. Steve, when you look at Brad's career, obviously it's been unique, been interesting with the great racing, the injuries that he had, and the great niche he's carved out with commentating, writing, and doing everything. What's your thoughts, Brad, as a person? We talked a little bit about racing, but what he's been able to accomplish, what he's been able to do in an amazing career.
Well, Brad, we ran Gambler with Coors Lights together and stuff, and he was a great competitor. And we raced, with the bad part about it was his racing was cut short there at Eldora, and that was a sad part of our life, part of racing. Racing's been so good to us that we had to leave Eldora and go to the hospital, and then sort of took Brad's racing career from him. So it was a bad situation for us, and Brad had a lot of good times and was plenty young and was going to win a lot of races. So we know how much he misses racing and what he's done for racing ever since he's quit racing.
It is. It's amazing. It really is.
The older I get, the faster I was too. So that's a fact.
There we go. Brad, you kind of ended with Andy talking a little bit about what's going on with him. How about you? I know you're staying busy with all kinds of projects, and I see you signing autographs out here later on today. Everything going well? Everything good?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. The TV part came into play through the Winter Series about 4 years after my accident, had no formal training in TV and got plugged into that deal.
Yeah.
And got to learn as I went along, and it's been fun. It's given me a second career, kept me involved in racing. Unfortunately, this weekend with the Knoxville Nationals, it's being televised on MAF TV, and I'm not part of this year's telecast, but the World of Outlaws did 4 races this year on CBS Sports, and the World Finals in November will be televised, and I'll be part of that one.
Cool. That's good. And writing for the magazine and just all around hanging out and enjoying the racing.
Yeah, absolutely, right. A column for Sprint Car and Midget magazine, again, kept me involved and keeps me in touch with a lot of these guys and what's happening within the sport, and kind of just enjoying this weekend. Usually when I'm out here, quote, working, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, I got to talk to this guy, I got to remember that, I got to write this down. I got TV Saturday night. It's always, especially in the days when it was live, it was a lot of pressure, and I'm just enjoying this weekend.
It is. It's good. Ladies and gentlemen, how about it for Brad Doty joining us here? Really, really neat, no doubt about it, and amazing what Brad has done. It's this second career. As I said, I believe that Brad is probably the absolute best ambassador that sprint car racing has. That's not sitting behind the wheel of the race car and has done amazing things. And over the course of years, that's been part of this sport. You've been pretty fortunate. You've got dinged up a few times along the way, but you've been fortunate to remain in decent health across the board.
No, I've been very, very fortunate. I think when Andy was talking about when it was a Tulsa, we had a valve release cut in a set of pistons backwards, and what it did, it blew a hole through them and got all the fuel in and burnt my back leg, so I had to spend a little time in a burn center. But other than that, it's been relatively pretty good.
If you have a question for Steve, make your way up to one of these microphones. We'll take a little bit of time and answer your questions or share a memory or share a thought with Steve. You can make your way up. Shane Carson is going to join us here in just a little bit, so we'll get to him as well as we kind of just keep things rolling along here. So feel free to jump up and we'll grab you with your question for the King, and feel free to do that. We were talking a little bit about racetracks, and I want to get a couple more out of the way, and we'll talk about some of the guys that you've raced against over the course of time. There's really 2 tracks that we didn't talk about, and they're the 2 most historic ones. Eldora, what comes to mind when you think about Earl Balta's place or Tony Stewart's place now?
Well, I mean, that's a place you wanted to go as a young kid, especially to go to Eldora. I mean, that was, to me, that was the first time I went there. I had been at the racetrack before and watched my dad race and other cars, but to get out on it for your first time, that was probably one of the things I do remember a lot, and it's just a place I always enjoyed racing. And like I said, Shane's getting ready to come back here. Earl would always put some of the bigger races, bigger paying races in to begin with, and always had some kind of excitement going on and trying to promote races. And Eldora's a lot different now, but it's Tony's made it all really nice and neat, and not that Earl kept pretty nice care of it too, but and he worked on it himself and run people off himself, invited people off himself. So he was quite entertaining himself. Just watch him what he did with the fans and his security and different things he did. You never know what was going to happen with Earl.
Yeah, is there something that stands out, a specific story with Earl, or just in general?
I've seen him throw people out there for no reason. I've seen him take people and just treat them like royalty for no reason. And he's a little bit like me. You just don't know what he's going to do from hour to hour.
That's fantastic. That is really, really cool. And finally, as far as the tracks go, across the street, Knoxville Raceway. You're a 12-time winner of the Nationals. So many great stories, so many great memories. What do you think of? What stands out to you as far as Knoxville?
Well, the first time I come to Knoxville was in the '60s with my dad and Galen Fox, which Galen was taking care of my dad's cars at that time, and even though it was a little different back then, they didn't have just the front stretch. There were no grandstands down the back stretch. Just a nice sort of a heavy black half mile with a board fence around it, and I mean they'd hit that board fence and be out on the road and just different things. And we sit there in tents and slept. I actually had a tent back there by the railroad tracks, and my dad and Galen, and back then it was a little bit wilder back then. They had gambling going on in the barns and different things. And so Galen, him and Dad, I think, had a pretty rough night. So they was in a tent. It was hot as it could be, and Galen was sitting there, and we snuck him out of his cot and set him out in the middle of the road, not the main road, but the middle of the road going through there, and people was driving around, and around taking pictures of him, and he never was moving. So anyways, before that started, he was sitting there, and I don't know, he got hot, he didn't have much clothes on or anything. They flipped the thing up, or the curtain up, or whatever, the door up on it, and somebody snapped a picture of it. Well, Galen did not want this picture to get back home. so he was after me to get the picture and all that stuff. So it was a little different. That was the first time I was ever at Knoxville. I can't even remember who won the race. That's the bad part about it.
So many great memories, so many great wins here. Is there, this might be a silly question, is there a favorite Knoxville National win for you, or one that stands out more? I mean, they've all got to be, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I've been asked that question, 3 or 4 times probably already this week, but a lot. There's every Knoxville Nationals is special. Whether you win it by half a car length or you win it by straightaway, you know what I mean? And we started 14th on I think back then it was 25, 35 laps, and won a race from 14th. It was a good year. And then there was a year I watched Craig sit there winning in my car from a straightaway behind, and that was as being a car owner, not winning as myself as a car owner, but my boy winning. It's Knoxville National is a hard race to win. That's something you can't take away from nobody.
Go a little deeper into that one, to see your son win this big race. There's a great story Dana talks about. You were racing against Craig Delansky, and she knew something was up, and she busted you for watching the scoreboard. Is that?
I don't know. I don't know how she knew I was watching the scoreboard. I'm sure I was not, but
that's her story.
As of my wife and a woman, I'm not going to argue the point.
Explains a successful marriage for so many years, right there. A wise married man, right there. Absolutely. But what? I mean, just in the moments after that, when your son won this race, I mean, and I know you got your own race car, and I know you focus on your own race car, but how cool was that?
Oh, it was really good, and it was a really thrilling time. Like I said, there've been so many good race teams and so many good drivers. It's won a lot of races here, and it's like I told some people yesterday. There have been a few people want to try to hog this race a little bit, though, so it's been tough to win.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now it's his teammate that's doing it. Man, there's something about these guys. They think they get 1, that entitles them to 2. They think they get 11, that entitles them to 12. So absolutely amazing stuff. It really is. Beyond the sprint car stuff, had a little dabble at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 1981 and 1997. But that you stayed so busy with the sprint cars. But what was that like, going to Indianapolis Motor Speedway? Maybe in '91 for the first time, and then in '97 when you were able to start the race and go into the race.
Well, it was a big thrill. Just I grew up in south of there, 60 miles, in Bloomington, and never had seen Indianapolis 500. Only been to it once. That's when we got to drive in it there. And Tony, that was the year they had to split between the cart and everything, and they was split 2 teams, and it felt like we needed some, it was not going to be the fullest field and stuff, so he could call me and ask me if I'd come up, if I could give me a car to drive, if I'd come up and run. And I said, nah, I had to think about it for a little bit, but I really enjoyed it, had a good time.
The NASCAR experience, how do you wrap up the NASCAR experience you had with Kenny Bernstein, the Quaker State car? How do you, years later now, the decision to go do that, how do you assess all of that?
Oh, that was just a mistake on my part and Kenny's part, both of us. You don't it's hard to take a 45-year-old guy down there, and 44 at the time or whatever it was, and never run any pavement, and then put him up against the best race teams and the best drivers there is. I mean, at best, you're going to have to work your way up, through some other things, not do no pavement racing. And by far, wasn't the strongest team at that particular time, or they wouldn't be calling me anyway. So it was a mistake on both of our parts.
One other thing you did similarly was the International Race of Champions, and you had some success there. Where did that fall in on the radar screen as far as enjoyment goes, and being able to do that and race against this wide variety of guys that were similar kings of their type of sport?
That was one of the funnest things. I mean, one of the funnest things we did. We enjoyed, not really particularly the races. What was fun was every time we come to the racetrack and practice, we had all the different drivers there, and we go out, and it wasn't quite it was a little bit different than the race, I will tell you that. When we was out practicing, it was a lot more fun. We'd talk about it and come in, and a lot of different types of race drivers from a lot of different divisions and stuff. So, every time we go to Daytona or wherever it was, or Talladega, Darlington, or just wherever, Chicago, wherever we was racing at, to me, it was a lot of fun because it was with Jim Sauter, Dick Trickle, and Dave Marcus.
Yeah.
We just had a great time with those guys, just racing with those guys, and then when everybody else comes, we all do it together and practice and stuff, and it was a good time to do. It was a lot of fun. I was lucky enough to win at Talladega and ran second at Talladega another time, which what the drivers love with me. That's where you're going to have a chance to win. You're definitely not going to put you on Darlington and have a chance to do anything. You'd be lucky if you can stay on the same lap with some of those guys. And the same thing. It's never been on a road course. We was never going to do anything with doing that and on pavement and stuff. But Talladega, Daytona, you could hang in there a little bit.
Neutralized it, that's for sure. Is there a good Shane Carson story or anything you remember?
Oh, there's probably a lot of them, but same thing Andy said. You got to watch
where we're at. Where we're at. Well, why don't we bring Shane Carson to the stage then, and let him come on up and share a little bit. A Hall of Famer. Good to see you. Grab that, jump in there, and
Appreciate it.
Tell us about Steve Kinser, Shane.
Well, Steve and I's relationship changed a lot over the years. As we first started out, both of us were, kind of starting out with the outlaw deal. We hadn't really, been in any sanctions. The outlaw deal hadn't quite started yet in 1978. So we were racing together and friends before that. And then through the years, I got into the promotion business, so he was running up my track.
Yeah.
So that was a little different. But we were still friends throughout all that. And then the latter, in the mid-2000, about 2005, I took the position with the World of Outlaws as a director. So then I was the bad guy, and then that changes everything. And I felt bad about that. I really feel better now not being in that position. But, and I think you understand. But we got along way better, I think, before that. But, Steve ran a lot of races for me in Oklahoma City. And the promotions that I did there were, I put everything into it. Steve came and did some of the pre-race publicity for me. We did the TV stations, we did the radio, and it was things that allowed me to do that was the, the reputation that Steve had. The people would come out and get behind us with the media. And that helped me a lot. So those were good times, and those races at Oklahoma City, I put my heart into it, and just having that track there, growing up as a kid, and being able to put on shows there from 1980 to 2002, that was a very big part of my life.
Pretty cool, it really is.
Yeah.
I was looking at the Hall of Fame at the posters and thinking about the promotional end of it, and it's just really neat to see all the promotions touting Steve Kinser coming to town, and you talking about it and everything like that.
We did that in 1980.
It's same in 1980,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Racing against Steve, what was that like?
Well, it was like Brad said, you always felt like you're at best running for second, but there was times when we got to beat him some, and I think that may have been times when he got in trouble and got crashed or broke, but that very first big 50 or 10,000 win race at Eldora. That race came down to the final race of the year for the point championship.
Yeah.
You know, the point race has been going on through the year. Rick Ferkel, Bobby Allen, Steve Kinser were real close in points throughout the year, but that final day it came down to Rick and Steve. And that was the final 10,000 to win race, the point race in 1978. So Steve had to be ahead of Rick or vice versa for the championship win. So I'm in there. I'm in a car that was just a loaner car out of Ohio, the Nichols brothers car, which is a whole nother story. But I was able to drive that car, and I was in a position to at least run second or third. And Steve was leading the race, and he would have won the championship. And we're coming down the front straightaway, 10 or 15 to go. And Jim Linder loses the right rear wheel, and it's bounced out of our sight because we were running wings.
Yeah.
So it's up above the wing. We're all looking around for it, and it comes down right in front of Steve, and he hits it and takes him out. Remember?
Yep.
Took him out of the race. So then we get him out of the way, and we're driving around on the yellow. And I'm behind Rick Ferkel.
Yeah.
So Rick Ferkel's going to win the championship. He had the championship. He had the race won. And we come around for the restart, and Ferkel rolls down to the bottom and off the track. Big trail of oil. They drop the green, and I win the race. Wow. So it was a huge story. You know, Steve wins the championship. I win the race. You know, poor Rick, he just missed that opportunity.
There were two great prizes, and you two got them, right?
Yeah, it was an amazing day, but yeah, that was one that I actually got to win. But he was in the pits, like Brad said. That didn't happen very often with him actually on the track. But,
you probably saw it as a competitor, and I'll guarantee you as a race director with World Laws, the intensity of Steve Kinser. What was that like to race against it? But what was that like when it was maybe coming at you? I think Andy talked a little bit about it coming at him at one time. How do you describe it?
I saw some of that. Yeah, I saw some of that. At Eldora one time we had he had a qualifying lap, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but they had another car on the track, and he was qualifying. This was a big race. This was the King's Royal at Eldora, and it was in between 2005 and 10 because I was the director at the time. Yeah. And I'm in the trailer when I heard this. And they said, "Well, Steve Kinser didn't get a good lap, and he's on his way down here." So everybody's like closing the door. Carlton Reimers, he was actually my competition director at the time, still is, and he was going out the door to try to head him off at the pass, and it wasn't good, but but we understood why he was upset, but those things happen, and that intensity is why he was so many time champion, why he won all those races.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
How was he as a competition director, Steve? Now, years later,
Well,
at the time, we know probably. But
anytime you got to be in a referee position, it's not a good job.
Oh, it's very unpopular. Yeah, it's an unpopular position.
And when you get like somebody like me, it's even a worse job. So, no, it's me and Shane we've had a lot of great times. I've been to Shane's house many times, ate buffalo burgers.
Buffalo burger.
Yeah, we had.
My first buffalo burger.
Remember we had lobster races in the kitchen?
Yeah,
we put numbers on all the lobsters and rodeo. My friends. Yeah.
Put numbers on the lobsters?
Yeah, Kinser was on the ground. Go.
Yeah, we had numbers on them.
We had about 10 lobsters, and they were live. It was after the Outlaw Show at Oklahoma City. We had some good parties there, but we had rigs all the way up and down my street, and all the people that lived there couldn't get in and out of their houses. But it was 1, 2, 3 in the morning. They weren't supposed to be going anywhere anyway. But we had all these rodeo unbox these lobsters, and they were all cold, but they were moving. So we put them all out on the ground and drew a big circle and put numbers on all of them. And then Kinser and Schumann and everybody was betting on it. They were betting to see which lobster crawled out of the circle. So he was down on the ground, go, and it was a great time. But that was just one of them.
Did the winning lobster get to live, or did they all get sacrificed?
No, they were all goners. And my owner back in the '80s was Tom Garrett, and he had a buffalo farm, buffalo ranch, and he would bring us buffalo burgers. They were great. That was another good thing about it, about coming to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Yep.
This has been interesting because I asked questions about what was it like to race that, but the off track and listening to you guys, listening to Andy talking about it, listening Brad talk about it, the off track stuff in that era and time, and I don't know that it's that way now. I'm assuming it's not that way now from what I talk to people. That had to be just amazing to look back at it and realize that here's Steve Kinser on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
This guy has stand-ups and worldwide acclaim, wins at Talladega, runs at Indianapolis, and here he is on the ground. It just had to be amazing to think about the great times you guys had.
That intensity carried over to that bet right there on the floor. I'm telling you, he wasn't going to lose there either. He go. Yes, he was not going to lose.
You've
had some good
watched.
times there.
That is fantastic. Back to the racetrack, not the lobster racing track. You've seen a lot of Steve wins. You've seen a lot of Steve races. Is there one that stands out to you that just like, man, that's if I had one race to show one tape to somebody, that's Steve Kinser. Is there something that stands out, or is it a collective amount of work?
Pretty much collectively, but the one I remember first off was in 1981. I was putting on my very first spring nationals at Oklahoma City. It was about 30 degrees, and it was a daytime race. We always followed Devil's Bowl, so they'd roll in there. Most of them were mad because they didn't get any sleep anyway. So they get the pit gate at noon, and we let them come in, and we're running this race, and it's pretty, it got to be pretty dry, and we were having a lot of red flags and delays, but every red flag, Steve and Carl was out there tuning on the car. Doug Wolfgang had the race won, led it every restart, and Doug doesn't take that very well. Anytime he gets beat late in the race, he didn't take it very well. But every red flag, they changed something on Steve's car, and on the last one with 2 to go, Carl rolls out a brand new Hoosier right rear tire. Nobody was running Hoosiers back then. We were all running Firestones. This is in 1981. And he puts the Hoosier on there and immediately goes to the front, passes Doug, wins the race. Wow. And Doug was so mad. And, of course, I had to hear about that. Steve was really happy. It was all good. And that may have been what changed the red flag rule to a closed red, or at least eventually.
Yeah.
Because Carl and Steve would do stuff like that. But that one I remember very well at Oklahoma City, and most people that were there do also.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Shane, you kind of rounded everyone up for the Devil's Bowl reunion. We can't go to the Hall of Fame without seeing you over there, the history of the sport, the tribute to Steve over there and everything like that. Pretty amazing. All the tributes this year. He's got keys to half the cities across America and everything like that. Very much merited and very much deserved for this guy. Is that how you would assess it?
Oh yeah, I'd assess that. I mean, every time I read the racing paper, he's got another key to the city, and that's worthy. Worthy of that.
They made me sheriff out there at Dodge City.
Yeah, I saw that.
And until this day, I can't ever figure out why they go arrest that damn Sammy Swindell for his jail.
Did you see Miss Kitty? Miss Kitty was there too.
Wow. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm at the later.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Shane, we love the fact you came over and hung out and shared a few stories of our guest here with Steve, and appreciate all you do for the sport. How's your week been? Everything's
It's been good. Yeah,
I know, that's a dumb question.
The weather moved us down a little later, but everything's good at the Hall of Fame, and we'll continue to promote the future by preserving the past. That's what we do. If you haven't been over there, come over and see it. The new Kinser display is very, very well done. And were those all your cars? Did you own all those cars?
No. Do I have to answer them? They are.
It usually takes us a while. Yeah, because we have to gather up. We had the Andretti one, and we had to gather them up from all over. Yeah. So it's a very nice display. And if you get a chance, come over and see it, and we're proud to have it there. Certainly fitting.
What'd you think of the exhibit over there when you saw it? I know I've talked to Jeff, I've talked to Tony, I've talked to the guys that have had displays over there, and this is here, and that's there, and that's up there, and this is over there. But to see it all in one area, what was that like when you walked in there earlier this week?
Well, I haven't really got time to sort of go through it yet. I did glance in it. I was in there, and we had a thing going, and I've seen some other things, but I haven't really got I did walk by it and see it. It still reminds you of all the cars and stuff, and we ran, and we got quite a display. And I've kept some of the cars myself, so it's pretty nice.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it really is.
cool.
Shane, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for all you do, keeping the
Thank
sport
you. I appreciate that.
along. Shane Stewart.
Thanks, sir.
Congratulations, Steve. That career will never be duplicated, and I appreciate you knowing you. Thank you.
Shane Carson joining us here. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it. Really, really cool, that's for sure. as we continue on. And a few more guests going to show up here as the hour goes on. Anyone have questions? You don't even have to come to the mic. I'll just repeat them for you. Anyone have a question for Steve? Question you want to ask? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Steve, would you comment on the USA split?
The USA split, that time period, what was going on there? What was the deal with that?
Oh, I think Carl and let's see who was Sammy running for then, Arnett. They had a little falling out with Ted, so you know, as a driver, I had to go where my race car goes, and that sort of what started it all. So, you know, it was a, you know, there've been couple of situations like that with the NST and stuff, and you know, it's just things that behind us, and you know, would still sort of enjoy doing.
Indeed.
And enjoyed not doing.
Yeah. ultimately end up right back as far as that goes. Other questions for Steve? Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. What was your favorite track to race at?
Oh, I think over the years it would probably still be outdoor, not just because my boss happens to own it, but no, I think I enjoyed running outdoor, and anytime you're in a big atmosphere, like it's a main race, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to see an atmosphere most generally, but the only thing that messed some of this up is a little bit of or a lot of rain and stuff. But it's when you see what's happened here at Knoxville, what I have when first time I come here, how much, I mean, the grandstands, the Hall of Fame, and just everything they've done to this place over the years. You know, it can't help but being a special place also. So there's a lot, and you know, as bad as I hated to go to Chico and run and do some of them races, it's still a race you sort of enjoy being there. And I've seen Andy win that race and run good, and a little bitty short, heavy track and a lot of wrecking, but you cuss it, and then you just don't, and then you realize how much you enjoyed it.
Is there one track that was just, maybe it's still active, maybe it's not, that was just a thorn in your side, and just if you're still racing there, that's one that's not going to be on your tour, or one that you were glad to see come off the tour along the way, or one that you just struggled at particularly, maybe not necessarily a bad track, but one you just didn't ever had success at?
Well, I've got probably more than one. I'll just right off the top of my head, I can't really remember. We've actually ran pretty good at times. We've had good enough equipment over the years to run pretty good everywhere. You know, I always wanted we didn't get a race at Paris a whole lot. You know, I've won races at Ascot, and then Paris sort of replaced Ascot. Right. And I've ran a second and third there. Never did win a race there, so it's a track that I never won on. It's sort of been a pain to me, and you know, I've come close and had a race won and got in a lap car right toward the end of the race, and I think I've ran second or third there 2 or 3 times and never won a race. So, and some of that stuff sticks. But not that we haven't run good there, but there is a few tracks. I just right off the top of my head, I just can't remember.
Is there a race that got away from you, one that stands out? I mean, you know, you race car drivers, a lot of times, Brad, I think, states it very well. You kind of a lot of times remember the ones that you didn't win more so than the ones you did win. Is there one where maybe it's something that someone did to you, something that you messed it up? Is there something that's like, man, if I had my whole career to do over again, one race, one corner, one deal, is there one that stands out?
Oh, there is a lot of races, but you know, you get races gave back to you that makes things even, sort of. You know, we was here at Knoxville one time, it was sort of running away the race, and I can't remember, we had a sort of an oil leak, and always before, when they had red flags, everybody could come out and do anything. Everybody was pretty well coming out there, and then all at once, nobody was allowed there, and it just kept, I think it just had a cap or something off of it, and we couldn't continue running that, so we felt like it was at Nationals we'd won, but I'm sure there's some that we got back the same way. And so you gotta just sort of weigh it out. I mean, I've won a lot of races, had gave to me, and I've lost a lot of few right at the end too.
Got another question out there? Go ahead, sir.
If you could give one piece of advice to an up-and-coming driver that's brand new to the world of outlaws, what would it be?
One piece of advice for a young racer that's coming into, wants to go World of Outlaw racing, what would that be?
Well, if you're gonna run up and down the road, you better have some money, I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. That's the reality of it, yeah.
You know, there's nothing to, you're gonna get a lot of experience seeing a lot of different racetracks running the World of Outlaws, that's for sure. There's no better way probably to get experience for different tracks and run against the guys that you run against every night, and not that they can be beat right now by local guys everywhere across the country, but that's just the way the racing is right now. And it's just, as a young driver, I'm sure every young driver that runs them has got the ambition, and a lot of them's probably got the talent. They just a lot of times don't be able to get the equipment to run with. So, the best equipment you can get, and you can get in, and the more knowledge you can put to making the thing roll around the track better. That's as a driver, it's the best thing you can do, probably.
We're gonna do one more question, and then we'll get to some more. We'll get to some more in a second. We got a guest, but one more right down front here. Go ahead.
What would be your fondest memory of racing in Australia?
Great question.
Oh,
Fondest
I've had-
memory. Let me repeat it so if they didn't hear it. Fondest question of racing in Australia. There we go.
Oh, I've had it's different periods. I don't know what you mean about the country itself, or the racetracks, or what. I've enjoyed. The first time I went to Australia, I flew everywhere I went. We come in, and I got a rent-a-car, and they stick you in a rent-a-car on the steering on the wrong side, and never been out of the country and stuff. So we went straight there to Parramatta, and so the streets was in jeopardy of somebody getting hurt right then. I about not run over some guy on a motorcycle right off the bat, but I've had a lot of fun. It's different types of racetracks. So the first year I went there, I didn't see nothing but a racetrack and an airport. And then the next time I got, and we had cars that me and Doug, I think it was me and Doug, Jimmy Sills, Larry Burton put together, and we didn't have really enough parts and things to race right, and it was turned into sort of a little bit of a chaos trip, a little bit of thing. And so the next time we went, me and Carl, we took 4 cars down, and you get 4 families there together and stuff. It gets to be a handful also. So then I cut it to 2 cars. It was just me and Randy. But when when I went back the next time, I said I'm going to buy a car or buy a vehicle, and I'm going to travel around, and I want to. Of course, as Australia, everything's pretty well around the coastal stuff. So I took Dana and the kids and bought a car or station wagon or what it was, and we took off and sort of seen Australia a little bit. That was probably as much fun as anything. And the first time we went there in '78, it was so much fun. It was like going back a little bit in time from home and stuff. But as I went the last few years, everything is pretty well, basically everywhere. It's pretty well the same no matter where you go now.
Yeah, everything's about the same. We'll get to some more of your questions here in just a little bit, but we've got another gentleman coming to the stage, and when we mention Australia, a guy that had incredible success at Australia, incredible career, and just one of my favorite people. As I've got my arms around this sport of sprint car racing, excuse me, in the last 5 years of doing Wing Nation, I just love the driver that's out there slugging it out and working hard and winning races and keeps winning racing. Danny Smith is here. There's Danny right there, yeah. And hey, man, we'll have you jump right in the chair there with Steve and talk a little bit. Just jump right in there. I'll just stand over here off to the side and let you two hang out a little bit. Danny, oh boy, tell me about Steve Kinser. Of course, he's right there. So, I mean, you might have to, you might tell me a different story.
I had a lot of stories planned to tell about Steve Kinser, but in this building, we're not mentioning most of them.
You know, Danny, there's a theme here, and I know you've been busy getting your car
I
ready.
just walked in. I'm sure that's been said
I think you're our 4th guest, and I think the 3 previous ones said there's some stories that we won't share in the church. So you're not alone there.
Although me and Steve started racing about the same time and started the Outlaws the same time. When we were kids, we really didn't know each other. Our dads raced together, and I was from Indianapolis area, and he was from Bloomington, so we never really got to be competitors or friends until the late 70s when he finally got a ride. They was talking earlier about one of those races that got away from you that wish you could get back. I remember one at Bloomington that about got you fired when you got passed on the last lap by a guy driving Diz Wilson's car.
There've been a lot of them I about got fired about.
It was a 50 lapper. I was off racing in Illinois, and I called my dad up that night, and I said, "How'd you do?" He said,
Oh, yeah,
I won." Oh, yeah. I said, "Yeah, I passed Steve Kinser on the last lap." Wow. But it was a 50 lapper, and I believe
I do
Steve's on
remember
the.
right now. Mike did do
Steve
that.
can probably
I didn't
tell
know
the
Mike
story.
raced anymore. I always say stick him with Diz's car. He come down to win a race.
Running 50 laps around the cushion, and then he blew the cushion clear off the end, and my dad's putting around the bottom, putting around. I guess coming for the checkered, he putted right on by Steve. And I talked to Steve somewhere, and he said, "You know, your dad about cost me my ride, getting me fired." That was back in the good old days. That was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Steve, Danny Smith, racing against Danny. Is there something that you remember about him, or what kind of racer is he to race against? What's your take on Danny?
Well, you know, I watched Danny race, and we sort of started the World of Outlaws together, and it's sort of funny because when I got Carl's ride, it come down to he was either going to put me or Danny in that car, and he must have been doing politics with Carl, and I was with the boss Elrod getting a ride. So, so we was, and Danny knew how fast Carl's cars was back then and stuff, and so it was quite a deal. And then I don't know, Danny fired me for it, so I don't know. We put it. He was left me. He was going to run Stapp's car, and he left his car, and I hadn't even raced yet, so this is going to be one of my first races. So Danny said, "I'll take his," or his dad, Mike, says, "Take his car and get it ready." And he said, "Take it to Lawrenceburg and run it." And we started putting it. I think Danny had got into something at Bloomington and tore the front axle out of it. So but at the last second, I started to go to Paragon because it's a lot closer. Yeah. I thought, well, no, Mike told me to take it to Lawrenceburg. Pulling the gate was Stapp, whatever Danny was doing with Stapp fell through, and I lost my ride.
As soon as he rolled in, I said, "I got some bad news."
Well, as soon as I seen you, I knew what the bad news was.
I said, "My ride's not showing up tonight, and I'm going to run my car. Sorry, buddy." And he said, "Darn, I knew I should have went to Paragon."
Wow, what
That would have been his first ride. My dad got me going.
This is when we both first started.
You know, I was 17, and Steve was probably 19, and my dad got me going, being in the racing business and the parts business, and he knew all the deals, and got me a learner car pretty cheap, where Steve was kind of looking for a ride, and he'd been carrying a helmet bag for a couple of years, and he was chomping at the bit to run my car that night, and it didn't happen, but like he said, he got Carl's ride, and it worked out pretty well for him.
I think it did. I think it did all right. Yeah, I think he came out of it all right. Is there a moment on the road, off the road, on the racetrack, or something like that you just a story or something that we can tell here in the church that kind of sums up the friendship, the relationship, the competitor that is Steve Kinser? There's over the years that you two have banged heads together out on the racetrack or hung out together afterwards.
I'll never forget the first trip to California in '78 when the Outlaws went there. Ted come up and said, "Hey, we want you to go to California and be a part of this." I said, "Okay." He said, "We're going to give you $900 at this track and $800 in this track." And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
they're going to give us money to go out there. And so we loaded up and went, and the trip out there was just, it was a caravan with Carl, myself, Bobby Allen, Lee James, Lee Osborne.
My gosh.
Bobby Allen. You get all these guys, you know, going 2,500 miles, and Carl, when we left, Carl said, "It's every man for himself." Well, we waited on Carl Kinser to change his trailer tires every 200 miles. He'd blow a trailer tire, and it was just a little open trailer, and he'd pull in the tire store, and they only had new ones. We're not buying a new one. We got to drive 40 miles the wrong way to get a $3 tire instead of a $20 tire. And after that 1978 trip, there were several more to follow, and the rigs got bigger and better, but they still broke down.
They still broke down.
Speaking of Bobby Allen, I'd like to interrupt Danny. I mentioned Williams Go before. I got to put Bobby Allen there because he was It was a good race. And I do have a story about Bobby Allen, too, I do want to tell.
We got a lot of stories about Bobby Allen.
There's a lot of, there appears there may even be stories still being made with Bobby Allen out on the road with his grandkids and everything. Racing around that early era of the World of Outlaws, I asked Steve this earlier on. Was it, you guys were just racing from spot to spot? Did you think it was going to be what it was? You know, what it grew into? What were your thoughts as Ted, and Steve mentioned earlier, Ted would promise you all kinds of things. Sometimes it would come through, sometimes it wouldn't. What was your thoughts on that whole early success in the late 70s?
Yeah, Ted did promise you a lot, and most of it did come through. Once in a while, he got a little carried away, but you kind of read between the lines and figure it out for yourself.
You knew the deal, yeah.
But yeah, those early years were, you're traveling to not only to different tracks, different part of the country. If I hadn't ran the World of Outlaws, I probably wouldn't have seen the Grand Canyon. I probably wouldn't have seen the coast in California, and we got to do a lot of sightseeing through the windows of a pickup truck. But back then, it was just so much fun. I remember going to West Capitol Speedway in Sacramento for one of the early Gold Cups, and Lee Osborne went out and set quick time, and he had a real small, it was a real sticky track. He had the smallest left rear in the track, so Steve borrowed it, and he went out and beat him. So he came in, I ran over, grabbed it, and we went out and beat him, and Osborne said, "That's it. Nobody else is using my left rear tire."
Borrowing a left rear tire. My, how times have changed. There you go, exactly. Danny, we love that you came over and shared a little bit. I know you're getting ready to go racing and everything like that. How has your season been? How has things been going for you this year along the way?
The longer you do this, it's supposed to get easier, but it's not. It's getting harder and harder, and especially financially. Running my own car, I have a little help here, there, and it adds up to a lot, and without those people, I couldn't do it. We've won some races around home, I think 4 or 5. We've been at the wrong place at the right time a lot this year and tore up a lot of stuff. And last night, pretty unfortunate that Tyler Courtney driving my backup car, the wing collapsed in hot laps and destroyed that car, but he's okay. And I was telling him, I've had a lot worse things happen to me than to lose a race car, so it's not that big a deal. So we'll keep plugging along, and everything's going pretty good. And it's been an honor and a pleasure knowing Steve and getting to race with him over the years. He's not only a good dad to his kids and a good husband to wife, he's probably the best sprint car driver of his time, and it's just proud to be part of it.
Proud to be part of it. Proud to have you here, Danny. Thank you for joining us. There you go. The legend, Danny Smith, joining us here in our tribute to Steve Kinser here this afternoon, and what a time, what a time. I tell you, there's, we might, no offense to everyone here at the church, but we might have to have another one of these at a campfire some night, I mean, it's really, really, really been cool. Let's get back to your questions. I know we had a bunch of them, and we love having your questions. Guy in the blue shirt here, what's your question, sir?
Steve, you've seen a lot of drivers come and go throughout your career. Who are some of the young up-and-comers that you think could be future ambassadors?
You've seen a lot of drivers come and go through your career. Are there some young drivers right now that you just are really impressed with, that are young up-and-comers that you're impressed with?
Well, yeah, there is. David Gravel's done a great job with us and stuff, and there's so many. And there's some drivers that's sort of in their middle age right now that have really, that's sort of they've ran good, but not as like you go with Paul McMahon. He's just up there, just running, just as strong as I've ever seen him. You know what I mean? And he's always been a great competitor and a great driver and things like that. And, Donnie has just sort of came on his own the last 4 or 5 years. He's run for a long time, but he's the guy to beat right now, and that's for sure. But as young guys, you just got to step up. But the World of Outlaws, there's probably a lot more of them out there. It just seems like every place you go, there's a good, strong race team. So there's a great future in it with racing.
Really is. With racing, the World of Outlaws, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about it. You're right. There's this middle-aged group of guys, Joey Saldana, McMahon, Darren Pittman, who's, does it take a number of years of seat time to get to the stage where those guys are at this year, so that everyone can jump up, or all these young kids can jump up and have a good run here or there, but to do it night after night, does it take that 10 years, 15 years in the trenches like those guys had?
No, you just gotta have the right, just gotta hit the right combination with the right people and stuff, and it can happen pretty fast. But there's a lot more race teams out there. There are people that, behind the scenes, that work on these cars. And the motor, there's so many good motor builders back in the equipment, it's just so much more equal than what it was. I mean, most of the times when we ran through a lot of the stuff, like through the 80s and stuff, you had 15 cars there, and now you can have 40 cars capable of winning the races. It's just that tough right now.
It is. Another question back there in the back with the blue shirt there.
Talk a little bit about Carl.
Carl, let's talk a little bit about Carl. Driving for Carl, racing for Carl. A little bit about Carl.
Carl was, he was just a real hard worker, a big thinker, thought out of the box a lot, very talented. He could watch a race car and know what it needs to have done to it. Just a very special person, probably the best there ever was, I would say. You can't say much else about him. Carl was a tough competitor. He's a no drag racer, knew about horsepower, knew about lightness, and knew the tires couldn't be spinning and the cars had to be going forward, and his cars did all that.
Wow. It's funny how you break it down and make it sound so simple, and yet it's so hard to do.
It is hard to do.
It's hard to do. Question right back there, sir. Go ahead.
You're in a race with Craig and Sammy. You look up and you see Craig. You race Craig as hard as you would if Sammy was
Okay. Here's the scenario. Okay, you're in a race. Craig's in the race. Sammy's in the race. Okay. You're up there racing. Would you race Craig for a win as hard as you'd race Sammy for a win?
No.
Somehow.
It does not matter if me and Sammy is running for 23rd or 24th. Somebody sees somebody's nose, our elbows are going up.
Where did that, is it just because so much time on, the whole rivalry, and I'm not asking you about your best friend here. I understand that. I'm not, but the rivalry with you and Sammy, is it just because the years and years, and maybe his personality, your personality, that sort of thing, or where did that start?
Well, it's because the cars was up front probably the most, I would say.
Yeah, you're right.
No, me and Sammy, we've had, it doesn't matter. To this day, I'm no kidding. Sammy could, if I'm coming backwards and one of us coming forward and we meet in the middle, it's a different race. The race starts again. So I don't know why it does it. It just does it. It's just part of it.
As a guy that watches from the fan side, it's been fantastic. It really has. It's been fun to watch, and I know people fall on different sides of that, but it really is. Our sport is better when there's good rivalries in it, and that might be one of the best that we have. Although sometimes it gets a little colorful, that's for sure.
Well, Sammy's one of the greatest race drivers there ever was, and it's been a lot of fun racing with him, and there's been good times and bad times. Most generally, when you race with somebody, 24 hours and everything's pretty well straightened out. Now, there've been a couple times me and Sammy's had to go a couple months, but so that's a pretty long stretch.
Reminds me, we'll get back to your questions here. I did one of my first jobs was PR for Ricky Rudd on the NASCAR side, and it was no secret in the NASCAR garage that Ricky Rudd disliked Dale Earnhardt greatly. There was races and everything else, and tragically in 2001, when we lost Dale Earnhardt, everyone's talking tributes, and Ricky was a very honest guy, and here people are asking him to say tributes. His quote on Dale Earnhardt was, "Dale Earnhardt made me race harder than anybody else in the sport." And that's really what it was. It boiled down to, it didn't matter, same sort of thing. Made me race harder. He couldn't, we couldn't say anything because Earnhardt had just passed and everything, but it's those type of rivalries that are always exciting and just been really, really cool. Other questions out here? Yeah, right down here, young man. Go ahead, sir. Did you race go-karts when you were younger?
Well, I had a go-kart. I never could have money to get a motor on it, so I just coasted down the hill. I did eventually race go-karts, yes. I didn't think I was ever going to get a run in them either, but I did after, I didn't get a run as a young kid. I did a little bit in the summer, actually right before I started racing sprint cars, to be honest with you. So I didn't really run any on pavement or nothing, but all dirt tracks, and did race them for a year or two.
Another thing you did when you were young, I know in the wrestling history, and which is an Indiana thing, and your family, and I know you still have you still have folks that are still doing it. Kurt did it and had considerable success in it. But I saw when you were a kid, karate. Did you do? Karate?
I don't know where that came from.
Okay, that's it. The answer is no.
The answer is no. I have no idea. That all jumped up in the last 2 years and where it's came from.
Really?
It must have skipped off a little bit from Kurt, because Kurt does some of that stuff.
Okay, maybe
too,
that's where it came from.
So I don't
That's
know
it.
what happened.
That's what I get for doing homework. See that?
It just popped up in the last couple of years. So
You learned something about your childhood. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, sir, right here.
Do you have a favorite sprint car that you ever drove, and did you ever drive a midget?
Great question. First question: do you have a favorite car that you drove?
sprint car.
Sprint car. Well, it's true. His follow-up was, have you ever ran a midget? Was there a favorite car that you ran? Maybe it was that.
Oh, I mean, the sprint cars has always been my favorite cars. So I mean, my favorite race cars when I first started are old Mitchell cars, and I actually got one of the cars that we made titanium spindles for, titanium front axles and parts that I can remember sitting there with making down at Carl's and stuff, lighting these cars up and things like that. So those early cars was a lot of fun for me.
Other questions? It's going right down here, sir.
I was gonna say I've been a fan since '81, and you look through here, and I'm sure there's guys that
Yeah.
have a lot longer than me. I think everybody's probably got their favorite way they're gonna remember you. How do you wanna be remembered?
Oh, I don't know. I just, I don't. Life's pretty short. I mean, I just want to remember as a sprint car racer, I guess, an open wheel sprint car racer, and that's what I am. And I don't know how else you could remember me. I have over the years spent a lot of time with the race fans, and that's something I enjoy doing. To some extent, and there's nights that I want to just pout like last night and leave and get away from everybody. So I don't know if we wouldn't have been in so many races. I might not ever been around a racetrack. I don't know.
Other questions? Yeah, right here, sir.
Yeah, as a kid, besides your dad, who was some of the guys you looked up to, when you were growing up?
Kids,
Local racers.
guys you looked up to. You had your father, of course, out there, but there are guys, heroes, guys you looked up with as a young racer.
Well, when I just went to local racing most of the time. I didn't get to go to a lot of USAC races and things, but as I did, it was mostly guys around our area. My dad, Dick Gaines, and then we had a lot of good racers right there around that period. So as we got a little older, you started seeing. You go down to the IMC days down at the Tampa Fairgrounds, and then they had the rivalry between Opperman and Pancho Carter and things like that. And it was I never did get to see too many of the other guys, but that was always fun to watch those two sort of battle it out. Sort of a USAC against open wheel, still a rivalry that sort of took off and things like that. So I always sort of looked up at Pancho Carter and to some of the things he did, and there's a lot of great racers out there. I will tell you that.
Other questions along the way? Way in the back, sir. Go ahead.
How do you sort the emotions between a parent and the owner when you're racing against Craig?
The emotion, managing the emotion of being a parent, team owner with your son's Craig's racing effort. How do you balance that or focus that, or how do you handle that?
Well, I mean, it's not too hard to handle. First of all, you look at this thing as a father, and I know how bad I wanted to race when I was younger, and grew up and watching my dad race and thinking you was never going to get a race, and you grow up with that much love. You want to see them if they really want to do it. You want to see them race good or bad or whatever. And Craig's been running pretty good because we've not been given, either one of us, some reason I don't know what. We've just not been giving ourselves the race cars we need to do the job. So, and then that's nobody's fault, because Tony gives us, he gives me all the opportunities to take care of that race car like it's my own, and we do our own motor programs and things like that. And we're just a little bit behind right now.
Other questions for Steve Kinser? Go ahead, sir.
Steve, do you think, Kurt, they were gonna,
What's that? I didn't hear me.
son Kurt, they were gonna follow in his dad's footsteps?
Oh, Kurt, is Kurt following in the footsteps?
Well, it's not the same footsteps I've followed, I can tell you that. Actually, he's a CO for DNR in Indiana right now, and then still doing a little fighting, so he's sort of half and half, I guess.
Yeah, so doesn't sound like sprint cars are in the
But
future.
no, he's not, I don't think Kurt ever has, I don't know why Kurt never really got involved. I'm not sure that Stevie and Craig might not have beat him up on the motorcycles or four-wheelers a few times or something, got him hurt or something, but he stayed away from it a little bit.
Yeah. Other questions? We got time for a few more. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Steve, you made it clear that, this is your last full-time year. If you do choose to run a few races in the next year or two, which races might you decide to run?
The question is that we know this is your last full-time season. We understand that. Are there a few races, if you decide you're going to run a few next year, are there a few that probably are going to be on that list?
Well, it depends on what night you ask me that question.
Okay.
I have some intentions of running a few races, yes, but I've had some discussions with Tony and what we're going to do and how we're going to go about it. And we haven't come down to nothing permanent, but so we might do a limited schedule. I said I would never probably run a limited schedule. I'd just quit. So it's still up in the air. I still got probably going to be. Won't make that decision probably until November.
Mm-hmm. Questions? Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
You were talking about the races that got away. I remember being at the King Royal, I think in '94, if I remember right, with Valvoline car. You were winning the feature, coming down the straightaway, and pretty much going around the outside line. And I believe it was Keith Kaufman decided to get out of line and run over a tire and lost, everything was done right at that point.
Do you remember that, a King's Royal where you were leading the race, and I believe it was Keith Kaufman got out of line, jumped a wheel, and cost you the race? You remember that? Or?
I don't know. There's been so many races, it's hard to say. He got out of line, and
Yeah, he said he jumped.
You were going around on the outside.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just part of racing. That stuff happens. You know what I mean? It's like I said, you get some gave to you, and you give some back.
Yeah, you hope it averages out, right?
Yeah, I
It
hope
usually
it
does.
averages
Hope it
out.
averages out. We have time for final question. Anyone want to get in? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, why are you quitting?
Why are you quitting?
Oh, I guess I'm spoiled. That's the only thing I know to say. I don't know. I still enjoy racing, and I really don't want to quit. But right now I do not want to run 90 races a year either. And there's a couple different reasons. I would like to sit back and maybe try to give Craig at least 1 or 2 good years where we're not trying to, even though Tony's helping me a lot, it's still going a lot of different directions and making it possible to do what to do. So and sometimes your body just tells you it might be sort of time to slow down a little bit. It's been a tough situation for me because I've loved racing so much. I definitely don't want to give it up, but you can't do things forever, and I don't know what my part will be. I'm pretty sure I don't want to sit and talk about those stories all the time, but I'll figure something out.
You can only fish so many days with Hillenberg, right? You know. So.
I don't know how much fishing will be going on there. But.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've never did any fishing, other than ice fishing. That'd be the only time I could ever fish.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You never had time to do anything like that. It might have been going on the boat, something anyhow. But you guys got, I'm sure, figured out. We've got just a little bit of time left, and I just want to throw names at you and just kind of get a reaction from you. Different guys you've raced against, different things. Doug Wolfgang.
Well, you know, Doug was just a real patient, smooth race driver. You know, hit his spots. Doug, when everything was going real good, Doug was probably one of the hardest guys there was to beat. There was. Now he was a little bit similar like me. Once you start having a little bit of trouble, you could have some difficulties. But when you had him in the right equipment and he had confidence in himself and stuff, he was a tough guy to beat.
Brent Kading.
Brett was just one of the good old second generation drivers like I was. Grew up around it, sort of a rough, tumbly, big man-handling race cars, and did a good job with it.
Shane Carson mentioned this guy, Rick Ferkel.
Rick was probably one of the. See, I got to watch Rick race and his reputation before I started racing, and then when I started racing against him, he was probably the toughest guy I ran against for the first couple of years, and was the hottest guy out there. And he was one of the first guys that actually traveled around quite a bit on his own, and there was not even sanctioned about it. He would just call promoters ahead. Loved to travel up and down the road, and a great competitor, and you know, I get to the point where I'm at the point where he was, you know what I mean, when he quit, and that's just sort of where we're at.
Just go any further. Jan Opperman.
You know, I've met Jan a couple times and watched him run, and of course his name was floated around a lot from different things, and so like I said, I was good enough to see some of the not too much of anything he did out east, and I mean I think the first time I got in a car, I'd run 4 or 5 races. Was at Springfield, Illinois, on a little bitty quarter-mile track here, and I think I qualified seventh. And so whatever it is, it put me and Oppum on the front row of a race. And I mean, I hadn't ran 3 or 4 races either, so it was a big deal for us. And to watch him and Poncho go at it down at Old Tampa Fairgrounds was a lot of fun. And a little different person, but he made it exciting for race fans and made a lot of fans.
He marched to a different drummer. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. Jack Hodenshield.
Jack, just a great competitor. You can't say enough. I don't know. Jack is the same way you see him. He's not he can have one of the worst nights in the world, and you couldn't even tell he was any different, or he could win the biggest race in the world there was, and it would still be Jack. You know what I mean? He's just it's just the way he is. He's the same all the time, and he seems like a happy guy.
He does. You know, that's funny you mentioned that. We were chatting. I'm going to do a couple more here. We were chatting. You see a guy and he has a bad day, and he has a good day, and you don't really know after the race. Jason Sides.
Jason, I got to know Jason quite a bit in the last 3 years or 4 years or so. Him and Scott got to be pretty good friends, and since then I've got to be good friends with Jason, and he works out of the shop a lot coming through because we're a little more centrally located and stuff. So he's just he's become a pretty good friend, and we enjoy having him around the shop and stuff.
Yeah, has fun after the races too. And Paul.
He has fun. Him and Paul pretty well have fun no matter where they're at. Yeah.
Yeah, someone said his brother Paul has never had a bad day. You know.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true.
Well, you wouldn't know it though in talking to him at times. That's for sure. Let's see, Keith Kaufman.
Keith to me was always a great competitor, tough, great competitor. Sort of a quiet, sort of brings onto you sort of a quiet guy, but I don't know, he's like a gentleman type guy, and I know he's not quite like that, but he raced for, he's one of those guys who can stand up and seat and get the job done.
Boy, no doubt about it. Fred Raymer.
Fred, I don't know, Fred just, for me, just all at once come out of nowhere in the last 10 years or 15 or what it might be, and just started dominating a lot of races around Williams Grove, and still fielding some cars and does a great job. And I was so happy for him to see him win that last race at Williams Grove there and stuff. So, just does a great job with the race car.
Oh, he does, yeah, no doubt. Dave Blaney.
Well, me and Dave, we've did a lot of things together. Dave was another one that's sort of a quiet guy, you know what I mean? But Dave's got a lot of talent. He gave up a lot of his sprint car stuff to pursue a thing to go down and do some pavement racing, which he's done a great job. Not been in some of the better equipments and stuff and things like that, but always a good friend, and always enjoyed the family, Dave and Dale and everybody.
Jack Hewitt.
Jack was Jack Hewitt was maybe a little bit of Steve Kinser, I would say. I don't know, sort of wild. I don't know, hard racer. Loved Eldor, you know what I mean. Loved running any type of race car. He liked running the stock cars. He would drive anything. He just liked to race that well. I mean, whether it be he'd get in a midget, he'd get in a late model, he'd modified, didn't matter to him. He just wanted to go race.
Donnie Schatz.
Well, right now, you know, Donnie's as far as a race driver, he's probably the hottest thing there is out there. He's worked, him and his family's worked hard to get him where he's at, and they've all done a good job doing it.
Tony Stewart.
Tony, Tony's always, he's an Indiana country boy and just a hard racer, grew up around racing, always ever wanted to do is race, and if things don't go his way, he's not happy, and if they go his way, he's good.
No doubt. Yeah, boy, there's no doubt.
No, that is not all necessarily true, but no, Tony's, he is, I mean, he's a little bit like me. He can't stand it when it gets there.
His progress as a 410 driver, before the accident last year, but his progress as a 410 driver, the results look like he was in a wing sprint car, because he ran a lot of 360 races as well. But he was all about that. I mean, he lived, breathed, and slept that. He was that focus that we talked about with you. He has that focus when he sets his mind on something.
Tony worked hard at it. They went and tested a lot. They ran a lot, and he put a lot of laps in. Mm-hmm. But there's still, no matter what, when you're out on a clean racetrack and things like that, it's so much easier to do when you throw another 20 of them out there. But he had enough 360 races experience to do it, and he made sure he had his cars rolling around the racetrack good when he showed there, and he did his homework, and when he got to the races and raced with us, it paid off.
Final name I want to throw out at you, Dana Kinser.
Dana's probably I mean, I don't know. I didn't think anybody could love racing more than I did, to be honest with you. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure she's not just a little bit of step above that on me. And she's a great mother, great, beautiful person. That's all I can say.
It's so cool to me. She runs the souvenir rig, and it's got to be really cool to be out there with all the fans and hearing everything. But it's got to be cool for you to know that she's out there in fandom, if you will. She's kind of got your back out there. She's got your back with the business end of it, the souvenirs, that sort of thing. But she's also out there kind of keeping tabs on what's going on as well.
Well, I'm sure she hears everything that goes on, especially if you're throwing out the souvenirs, good or bad. So you probably just got to ignore a lot of it, and that's something. That's something that's something that me and Dana's we've not tried to, if somebody tries to, I'm sure, run Dana down and offend her, or maybe not even know they're doing it or stuff, and I said, she knows to just let it go and don't worry about it. Because a lot of times if you throw a little fit about it, that's what they want you to do anyway. So
get a little reaction. And we learned she does the McDonald's drive-thru very well also.
But most generally, there's race fans most generally, you're not going to have that happen unless there's a little more alcohol involved.
A little more alcohol, or not sure who they're around and that sort of thing. Steve, we're going to wrap this up. Been really cool hanging out with you here today. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the stories. Just thanks for everything. We appreciate you spending time with us here this afternoon.
Well, most of all, I just want to thank the race fans, and that's something my dad pointed out to me, that the race fans are the special people that build this sport, and I've been fortunate and lucky enough to go through 3 generations of it now. I've had fathers and their sons and their kids all come and watch me race, and sprint car racing's been good to me, and that's all I can do is say I've enjoyed every bit of it.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Kinser.
Thank you.
That is going to wrap it up. We remind everyone there's a free will offering right out at the door that's going to the charities, the Grand Theater Project, the KR, the Racing Association that helps guys with safety, root beer floats in the cafe, and fill out the comment cards out there. We appreciate it. I do want to say one other thing on behalf of the church here, folks. And we're in the middle of this. We're all having a great time here at the Knoxville Nationals. But if you find yourself in need of something that maybe someone at this church can help you with, you need an encouraging word, you need something, grab one of these people with the red shirts on, sweet, sweet people. And if you find yourself in need of something, someone just to talk to about what's going on, do that as well. We've had a great time. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks to Steve Kinser for joining us as well.